Welcome back to another edition of the Saturday to Sunday Football Podcast. I am Paul Perdichizzi, and thank you for joining me. As always, another 4 playoff games have been concluded. I'm recording this Sunday morning before the last week of the NFL season. More prospects declaring for the 2025 NFL Draft. Some a little bit of a surprise. Other prospects we're still waiting on. Probably have to wait to after the college football playoffs concludes to find out if they're going to be in the 2025 NFL Draft or come back for another season of college football. And here at Saturday to Sunday, we are continuing to cover all things college football, NFL Draft, NFL rookies, dynasty stuff, Devy stuff, wire to wire. And this is really now pushing towards the heart of our season, right? It's almost the all-star circuit in the pre-draft process, and then the combine, and then all, the pro days and stuff like that, getting ready for the 2025 NFL Draft. Major updates coming to all the premium notebooks as well. So a lot of stuff in the works here at Saturday to Sunday. And then hopefully you are sticking with us and checking out the content that I am providing. So let's get right into it, because we did have 4 of those playoff games, some other bowl performances I want to talk about as well. But we got to start with the bowl games, right? In terms of the college football playoff bowl games. So let's go in chronological order. We started with Penn State easily defeating Boise State. I think the things that really stood out in terms of the 2025 NFL Draft is we got Drew Allar. He played a really sound, functional game, 13 of 25, 171 yards and 3 touchdowns. And all now the surrounding talk about Drew Allar, who said he was going to come back to school, is does he change his mind based on Penn State and how far they go and how he looks the rest of the playoffs? There's a lot of talk that if he declares for the 2025 NFL Draft, he may have catapulted himself into the QB1 discussion because of the ceiling and the upside that he may present relative to Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Drew Allar has been a polarizing prospect for years in college football. Highly regarded recruit. He fits the prototype, the size, the frame, the arm talent, the athleticism and mobility. It's been the inconsistencies and the development that has really hindered his draft stock. And I think it's kind of yo-yoed up and down over his time at Penn State. But with the uncertainty of this quarterback position, I think it becomes the most fascinating thing we need to still know about the 2025 NFL Draft. Because if he does declare, is a team going to fall in love with the upside that Allar offers relative to maybe the floor that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders offer, who don't have as much of the prototype? It's going to be fascinating. Right now, I have Drew Allar as my QB4 in possible QB ranks for this draft class, but it is a small window with Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. I still have Jalen Milroe, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Right there with Allar, I think Drew Allar, Jalen Milroe, they kind of are in the same bucket for me in terms of high upside, offer a lot in terms of their physical traits. And it's going to be really interesting to kind of see, everyone keeps saying, oh, next year's class might be better. Well, what if Nico stays? What if Arch stays, right? So Drew Allar may look at it as a chance where he goes back to school, continues to refine his game, and he's the number 1 pick in the draft next year if he does that and Arch and Nico decide not to come out, right? That's not inconceivable. Right now, though, does he go out and say, I could be a top 5 or top 10 pick right now? And kind of strike when it's hot, and maybe Penn State doesn't have as good of a year next year, whatever the case may be, could hurt his draft stock. It's going to be a really interesting decision. I kind of am leaning towards him maybe changing his mind and declaring, but I think it could be impacted by how things play out here the rest of the college football playoffs. Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, I feel like we've been talking about them all year, the dynamic duo in the Penn State backfield. Allen at 134 yards, Singleton 87 yards. I think Singleton will continue to have the higher draft stock. I think he's in that day 2 mix. I think Allen is more in that round 4, round 5 mix. I think he's a little bit more of between the tackles, hard-nosed, physical, tough runner, where Singleton offers that big playability, the ability to get to the outside, that home run threat with the speed, the acceleration, and the burst. So I don't think much has changed in that regard. Tyler Warren continues to show why he's either tight end 1 or tight end 2. I think he's going to be tight end 1 in this class. I think he's going to be top 20. I think he just offers too much of the complete package, the athleticism, the receiving, the blocking ability, the size, the frame. There were questions last year about his hands. He seemed to clean that up this year. Not a lot of issues there. Tyler Warren, 63 yards, 2 touchdowns in that win for Penn State. On the other side, Ashton Jeanty, clearly the hardest matchup he's faced this year. For the most part, he got to 104 yards, but it took 30 carries. Like what he had been doing with like high volume in any other game, that 30 carries would have amounted to like 250 yards. So he really got bottled down. Again, I'm not going to make that an indictment on the player. Ashton Jeanty is a special player. There is a gross mismatch between Penn State's D-line and defense compared to Boise State's offensive line. It just is what it is. If anybody is overreacting because Jeanty, struggled in this game for his, expectations, I would not in any way, shape, or form make too much of that. Jeanty is a special prospect. He's going to go top 20, maybe top 15. Could even see a team at the back end of the top 10 really be intrigued with him. We saw where Bijan went. We saw where Jahmyr Gibbs went. Jeanty, I don't think I have him as high of those guys, but he's close in terms of the ceiling and the pedigree that he offers as a prospect. Take this over to the Texas versus Arizona State game. What started out really slowly, turned into far and away the best of all the college football playoff games with an exciting finish, went to overtime. Stories that we got to talk about here is Quinn Ewers. He's still one of those guys that's undecided. There's a lot of talk that a lot of teams are offering him, crazy amounts in the NIL money to transfer out of Texas because Texas is going to hand the football over to Arch Manning next year. But Ewers in this game, 322 yards, 3 touchdowns, that play to, where he changed at the line of scrimmage, sort of coverage, threw the touchdown. That was a big time play by Quinn Ewers. Has the physical traits. He, similar to Alar, up and down inconsistencies. I don't think his physical traits are at a ceiling of a Drew Alar or even a Jalen Milroe, but an intriguing prospect nonetheless. I think if he declares, we're probably talking about a guy somewhere maybe on the day 2 mix that a team might take a chance on, but I think he's going back to school. I think he's going to go to the transfer portal. Now, maybe if Texas wins the national championship, things change, and he tries to ride that momentum to a better draft stock than maybe people are giving him right now, but I think he ends up going the transfer route, finding the right situation, and then hopefully refining, developing next year, and maybe put himself in the mix to be in the round 1. Prior to his injury this year, that was what we were talking about him. So I think it's one of those things where he might see that scenario. A couple other Texas prospects that we got to talk about. Matthew Golden, haven't really mentioned him much, but he's morphed into Texas's number 1 wide receiver the second half of the year. Great performance this past week, 7 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown. He's up to 56 for 936 and 9 touchdowns on the year. I think he's now squarely put himself into the day 2 mix at the wide receiver position for the 2025 NFL draft. Tight end, Gunnar Helm, we've talked about him a little bit here or there. 3 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown for the season. He's up to 58 catches, 744 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I'll talk a little bit more about the tight end group collectively towards the end of the show, but I think he's now put himself in the mix to potentially be, a day 2 prospect, round 3. If he doesn't go round 3 because it's a really strong class, maybe the top of round 4, but I think he's got a real chance to be a top 100 prospect in a really stacked tight end class, which I'm excited to kind of talk about a little bit more towards the end of the show. And obviously, in the pre-draft months here as well. And then on the other side, what can we say about Arizona State running back Cam Skattebo? 30 catches, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 catches, 99 yards receiving, threw the touchdown, Mr. Versatile, do it all. He's going to be one of those guys that's going to be such a polarizing draft study because he doesn't have the measurables. He's not going to test that well. I don't even know if he should test, but at some point he's going to test because he's a gamer. He's a guy, he knows. I think people know who he is and who he isn't. He's not going to be a guy that has great athletic testing, but the contact balance, the leg drive, the power, the determination, the physicality, the toughness, and the versatility is going to make him intriguing. I don't see a scenario where, to a really strong running back class, he's going to go somewhere in round 4, round 5. That's just what I think about Skattebo. I don't think he's a top 100 prospect. I think there's too many running backs in this class that have the physical and athletic traits that I think are going to be taken ahead of him. But I do think he's going to be a team that every team falls in love with when they, work him out, meet with him. Teams are going to want him, but I think it's going to be more like someone pulls the trigger on round 4 than, round 2 or round 3 when it comes to Scadaboo's game. Take us to the next game, Ohio State over Oregon. What we thought was going to be the best game of the college football playoffs. Instead, it turned into a Ohio State romp where Oregon was never really in that game. Will Howard, 17 of 26, 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Henderson 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, Judkins 85 yards. I continue to say that I'm really fascinated to see how the NFL, people view those 2 running backs, because I feel like Henderson was the guy years ago that was generating all the buzz. And then it kind of pivoted to Judkins. And I think when this year started, almost in everybody's rankings, Judkins was ahead of Henderson. But there's always been, for me, some reservations about Judkins. I love the leg drive, the vision, the patience. But to me, athletically, he's going to be an average or slightly below average running back compared to NFL standards when it comes to athleticism, while Henderson offers that big playability. I think both of them have a legitimate chance to go in the top 100. We are in a world now that every team uses 2-3 running backs, and I think Quinshon Judkins could offer a lot in terms of that interior, inside running, north-south, the physicality, the leg drive. But Henderson is going to intrigue the teams that want that outside presence, that big playability, that, home run hitter. If they have a guy who could pick up the tough yards on the interior, Henderson is going to intrigue to them. Jeremiah Smith, I know he's not eligible, obviously, till the 2027 NFL draft, but I'm not sure what more there is to say about Jeremiah Smith. 7 catches, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, unbelievable performance week in and week out. Emeka Egbuka, 5 catches, 72 yards, and 1 touchdown. I think he's rock solid. I have him as my wide receiver 4, counting Travis Hunter there as a wide receiver. I don't think Egbuka is getting out of the first round. I feel like we've been talking about him for a long time, that he hasn't generated as much buzz, but he is very smooth, inside-outside versatility. Teams are going to be intrigued with him. I think he'll probably go in that early 20 range. Just so we're comment from Felix Sharp, big fan of Felix and all the work that those guys do over there. Quinn Ewers to Ohio State, really good guess. I think that makes a lot of sense. Pair himself there with Jeremiah Smith, all the other great weapons that Ohio State always is churning out. Chance to win the national championship, chance to really improve his draft stock and continue to kind of elevate him in terms of the national consensus, in terms of the NFL evaluators. So if that's where he ends up, that makes all the sense in the world. That would be an ideal, pristine landing spot for Quinn Ewers. On the other side of that game, again, Oregon, fantastic year. Ran into a buzzsaw last week versus Ohio State. Dylan Gabriel, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. A lot of that was in comeback mode. Listen, Gabriel, great collegiate quarterback. I think when you're talking about NFL draft, since the beginning of the year, I've said, like, the athletic and the physical traits are going to be below average compared to what we see at the NFL level. That doesn't mean that Dylan Gabriel can't turn himself into a quality backup, right? I know people are going to want to look at him, and every guy who doesn't have the physical traits, teams are going to, people and fans are going to be like, is he the next Brock Purdy or something like that? That's so few and far between. That's so rare for that to occur. Nobody should be like, oh, he could be that. If he turns into it, great. It's great for the NFL. It's a great story. He's had a great collegiate career. But I think a guy like Gabriel, you kind of bring him in as a day 3 prospect. You hope that he is a guy that can morph himself into a quality backup quarterback to, if the starter goes down, you can run the offense through him. We know he's got a ton of experience. So I think that's kind of where Gabriel is headed towards in terms of the 2025 NFL draft. Terrence Ferguson, another one of those tight ends. I think he's in the round 4 to round 6 mix. 5 catches, 71 yards. And then Tej Johnson, not a strong performance, only 5 catches, 32 yards. But we've seen, I understand he ended this year injured, didn't have nearly as good of a second year as he did his first year. But you look at a guy like Tank Dell and the impact he had in his rookie year. Teams are going to look at Tej Johnson and think that he can be an intriguing prospect at the next level. I think he's squarely in the mix to be a day 2 prospect, go somewhere, mid round 2 to early round 3. And then the final game of the college football playoff in terms of the last week, Notre Dame over Georgia, a defensive battle. Not really almost any offensive prospects to talk about. I mean, Riley Leonard obviously going to be in this draft class. Left Duke, went to Notre Dame, has a legitimate chance to win the national championship. But I just don't see a lot of NFL traits. He looks the part, but he doesn't have the arm talent to match that. He's got average to above average athleticism for a man his size, but he doesn't have great athleticism. I think the processing and stuff is just average. I think he's probably going to get taken somewhere in that round 5 to round 7 mix. But he's the only guy really in terms of the offensive skill players that I wanted to mention, because obviously ND did win comfortably in that game, but it was a defensive effort that really dominated that. Really excited to kind of see ND next game, to kind of see if we see a little bit more from the offense, if their defense gets pushed a little bit more. It should be 2 fun matchups in the college football semifinals. If we take this to some of the other bowl game performances that I really wanted to talk about, and it's really the quarterbacks. And on that Saturday, we had Cam Ward versus Iowa State. We had Shadu Sanders versus BYU. And then after that, a couple days later, we had Jackson Dart versus Duke. Now, the big story around Cam Ward was his decision, or the team's decision. We haven't been given any details about Cam Ward and why he only played the first half. I think it's a story about nothing. I think people who are trying to make it a bigger story, I don't think NFL teams are going to care. I don't think it's going to hurt his draft stock. I don't think it's going to be something that most players in his position would not have even played in the Pop-Tart Bowl. They just wouldn't have. So the fact that he went out there, sure, maybe it was about, again, the touchdown record, but he didn't come out as soon as the touchdown record was complete. But whatever the case was, he gave his team a half, and he was unbelievable in that half. And I strongly, strongly believe that they probably knew in advance that he wasn't going to play the whole game. Whether we ever find that out or not, or that ever becomes public knowledge, I don't know. But regardless of the situation, who cares? What I want to talk about is how good Cam Ward looked in that first half. Iowa State has a really good pass defense, and Cam Ward sliced them up, showing the complete package. Touch, anticipatory throws, pushing the ball vertically down the field, sliding in the pocket, buying time in the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield. All things that I love about Ward's game. 12 of 19, 190 yards, 3 touchdowns. I came away really impressed with Cam Ward. I think he's going top 5. I think there will be teams in the mix that will be excited to bring him in. He has been steadily improving and developing every single year in college football. He can play off structure. But he's looking to make plays with his arm, but move around and buy time in the pocket. He showed better awareness in terms of, decision-making this year, not taking as many sacks. Obviously, the offensive line was strong there. You saw sometimes that game against Iowa State where he looked beyond comfortable out there, just waiting and waiting. Obviously, that's probably not what he's going to see in the NFL in any situation, but I still think he's a high-caliber prospect. I know this draft class at the top isn't last year's, but I still think people are underselling it a little bit. Last year was a very unique case with Drake May and Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. Most years we don't have prospects that have that level of ceiling, physical ability, and upside as that. I still believe that I don't think this draft class is all that different than CJ Stroud and the Bryce Young year. Those 2 quarterbacks played on elite college football programs with pristine environments around it. Great playmakers, great offensive line, great defenses. They put up great stats. But even if you go back to that draft cycle, there was a lot of questions about Bryce Young, the size, the frame, could his game translate to the next level? I understand he was most people's QB1 that year, but there were still questions about the size, the frame. Could he withstand the NFL, seeing over the line, all that stuff? And then TJ Stroud, if there wasn't that performance against Georgia, there were tons of questions about CJ Stroud in big games, CJ Stroud versus pressure. CJ Stroud hasn't been pushed, hasn't been asked to do a lot. Now, CJ Stroud had an amazing rookie year, but he's came back down to earth this year, hasn't looked like that elite level player that he looked like his rookie year, and he wasn't considered an elite level prospect. There was a lot of talk that he wasn't going to go number 2, that he could have fallen a little bit. So when I look at a guy like Cam Ward, and I look at a guy like Shadu Sanders, and we'll see if anybody else is added to the mix there. A guy like Drew Lock. I don't think, okay, maybe Stroud and Young were more accomplished, but in terms of their physical traits, I don't think the physical traits of Shady Sanders and Cam Ward are all that different than the physical traits of Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And I think if Shady Sanders played at Alabama with Bryce Young's surrounding environment, he could have put up just as good a year as Bryce Young and been in the mix just like Bryce Young was. Cam Ward, if you put him in that Ohio State offense, I think would have looked as good, if not better, than CJ Stroud. So I don't think there's this mass difference between guys like Sanders and Ward to Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I just don't think it. I don't think they're last year's prospects, but last year's group of quarterbacks was a very unique class compared to most years in terms of the NFL draft cycle. Speaking of Shady Sanders, he did struggle in that BYU game. BYU looked like the far superior team. Sanders finished out with 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His running mate there, Travis Hunter, 4 catches, 106 yards, and 1 touchdown. Listen, Sanders struggled, had some issues in that game, but I'm not impacting his draft stock. I think the bigger thing was I love the fact that we saw Shady Sanders play. We saw Travis Hunter play. We saw Cam Ward play a half. That's great for college football. We don't see that anymore. I hope it's the start of we sometimes see some guys want to finish or partially finish what they started, even if it's not in the playoffs. But I thought it was great to see those guys play. I'm excited. I think both those quarterbacks deserve to go top 10 to teams that are needy. Listen, we live in a world now, you got to take your shot. You got to take your shot. And every quarterback, there's always going to be question marks. And it's an inexact science. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit when we talk about the overall positions, but it's a tough position. And things aren't always so black and white in terms of easy to evaluate, hard to evaluate. It's a mixed bag every single draft cycle. And then Jackson Dart versus Duke, I know he was generating a lot of buzz, 404 yards, 4 touchdowns, showed the ability to win at multiple levels, handled pressure well. I can't get behind Dart as even a first round consideration. Day 2, sure. To me, he's as talented as the guys like Desmond Ridder and Matt Corral and Malik Willis, who went that draft class all in round 3. Now, none of them have materialized. I think Jackson Dart could go round 2 or round 3 in this draft class. Like, I think his talent compared to Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck, they're all there on a level playing field in terms of guys that I think weren't maybe going on day 2, taking a shot, because you got to keep taking shots. And teams are okay in round 3 getting a high quality backup. I don't like the round 2 range. To me, we see too much in the NFL. You got to get your quarterback in round 1, or you get really lucky and you find one, late, but that's such a diamond in the rough. But if you take one in round 2, I feel like you want them to be a starter, a good starter, even though they pushed to round 2. Round 3, I think you could justify if they become a quality backup with the way contracts are in the NFL, that you've done good by getting a quality backup somewhere on round 3. So many round 3 picks bust out and don't even make it. So if you're telling me you can get a good backup quarterback for 4 years under contract in round 3, I think that's a good investment. But a guy like Jackson Dart, I just think the scheme has created a lot of the production there. And without that scheme, I'm just not sure it would look nearly as good. So I don't think he's got high-end traits. I think his traits are average to above average. So I'm more of a day 2 guy for Dart. I could see why some people are a little bit more enamored with him, but I can't get there as a top as a first round pick or even a top of the second round pick. To me, he's more in that like 50 to 100 range, late round 2, but even for me, more probably round 3. The big declaration since I last declared was Jalen Milroe. I'm going to talk about him a little bit when I talk about the landscape of the quarterback position, but I have a lot of thoughts on Jalen Milroe. His decision to come out, a little bit surprising. Thought he was going to go back to school, but he decided to come in, and I still think we're waiting on Drew Lock, but I still think Jalen Milroe's got a real chance to be QB3. I think he should have more of a round 2 grade. At once upon a time, I thought he was locked to be top 10, and I thought he warranted that. But even if I think he's a round 2 talent, I think he's probably going top 10. And it's just the physical traits, the elite level athleticism. We're talking about a guy who's arguably the greatest running quarterback in terms of size, frame, athleticism, speed, burst ever. He's on that level of Michael Vick, on the level of Lamar Jackson, but a little bit more physically built, I think, to withstand the rigors of being a big-time runner. Elite level burst. Can push the ball vertically down the field. Obviously, ball placement accuracy, short to intermediate, questionable. Going for progressions, questionable. Handling pressure, where he doesn't just take off and run, but keeps his eyes downfield, still questionable. But we've seen Anthony Richardson go in the top 5. We've seen teams take chances on prospects with high-end traits. Evaluating the quarterback position is harder than ever. Just look at arguably, Joe Burrow probably has something to say about it, but if you talk about the top 3 quarterbacks in NFL right now, it's probably Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow's right there in the mix, and so many other great ones. But if you look at those 3 guys, Josh Allen, we've talked about that because I was on the bandwagon of Josh Allen, but that bandwagon was small. And there was a lot of people that said high-end physical traits, can't play the quarterback position, can't do accuracy, ball placement, anticipatory throwing, touch, all that stuff. Never going to make it, going to be a big bust. If it wasn't for Buffalo, who knows where Josh Allen falls in that draft. Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs loved him. I know the Giants loved him. But there were a lot of questions about Patrick Mahomes. Could he play within the structure of an offense? We knew he could make the spectacular plays, the throwing on the run and stuff like that because he had special arm talent. But could he develop the intricacies of playing the quarterback position? Obviously, if anybody knew what he was going to be, he would have been the first pick that year. He ended up being like, I don't know, what, the 4th quarterback, I think, that draft class. It took the Chiefs trading up to get him. If the Chiefs don't trade up, where does he fall? Nobody expected him to continue to refine and develop the way he did. Lamar Jackson fell to the end of round 1. People literally saying, should he play a different position? I know that wasn't the consensus, but there were at least some people saying it. A lot of questions. Is he just an athlete playing quarterback? Can he play quarterback at the next level? We've seen how that materialized. Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. We've seen what he's materialized into. Now, does it always work out? Of course not. Justin Fields went top 10. Justin Fields looked like a better passer than Jalen Milroe by far in college, but it hasn't materialized. But he went top 10. Hasn't worked out. We haven't seen the growth in terms of the other quarterbacking things. Anthony Richardson, haven't seen it. We saw glimpses and pieces early on, but hasn't played a lot. Very inexperienced. There is no inexact science in evaluating the quarterback position. Teams look for high-end traits. Teams look for guys that they think could develop. If teams think that Jalen Milroe can develop the other stuff of his game, he's going to go top 10 because, or right outside the top 10. He's going to go round 1 because if you look around, most of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL right now were not slam dunk. No questions about them coming into the game. Like Lamar Jackson, late 1st round, Josh Allen in the teens, and teams trade up into, I think it was like 7 or 8, and then Patrick Mahomes in the early teens. Teams take a chance on Anthony Richardson. He went round 1. Team took a chance on Jalen Hurts early round 2. That, for Jalen Hurts, panned out. But then on the other side, Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields, so many other quarterbacks that bust. But it's not just the guys who, that bust, who are the guys who maybe have questionable ball placement, accuracy, going through progressions. Even the quarterbacks that do that bust at an extraordinarily high rate at the next level. So to say like that there's a one size fits all, that this guy's going to bust because he doesn't do this and he can't develop this, but this guy's going to make it. If that was the case, we wouldn't see so many quarterbacks, fail. Daniel Jones, if the Giants didn't take him, somebody was going to take him probably in the top 15. There was a lot of buzz that the Commanders liked him a lot. Is Daniel Jones a far superior? I understand that. Obviously, nobody now wants Daniel Jones to be their quarterback, but Daniel Jones went where he did because of the size, the athleticism. There was a lot of questions about his other ability to see the field, progression, stuff like that. He still went where he did. And there's endless amounts of other prospects. So I do think there's a real chance that Jalen Milroe still goes in the top 10 of the NFL draft. We'll see about Drew Lohr, but there could be a team that falls in love with Jalen Milroe. He's already said he's going to the Senior Bowl. I think that's great for him. And we'll see how that kind of plays itself out through the pre-draft process. kind of want to conclude the show here with just kind of talking about the positions as a whole here, the offensive skill positions, as I start to, really get back into reorganizing, re-ranking, rewatching these guys. We look at the quarterback position, we talked a lot about, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but we have Sanders, we have Ward, we have Milroe, we might have Drew Alar, we'll see. We have Carson back, we have Jackson Dart. We'll see about Quinn Ewers. I think he's going to go back to school. But you look at Sanders, you look at Ward, Milroe, Jackson Dart, Carson back. Even in what's been a down year for Beck, there still seems to be enough intrigue and buzz about him that I think he's going somewhere on day 2. And Dart's probably going to go somewhere on day 2. So if those guys are locked into day 2, and Sanders and Ward are probably locked into round 1, even though there's been some talk over the last 24 hours that, Tom Pelissero, I think, put something out that some NFL people don't view Shady Sanders as a round 1 pick. I think he's going round 1. But if Sanders and Ward are going round 1, and Beck and Dart are going day 2, and Milroe is that wild card that can go round 1 or round 2, and Drew Alar, if he declares, could go round 1, top 10, we're talking about possibly having 6 guys in the top 100. So it's not a top-heavy elite quarterback class prospects like last year, but I also don't think it's as bad as some people are making it out. Now, again, you're swinging for the fences, though. I think Dart and Beck are backups at the next level, and we'll see. I think they could be good backups, game manager types if they got put into the mix. I think Sanders and Ward could be starters. I think Milroe is a real wild card that it's hard to project what he could be. Depends on if you're talking ceiling. If ceiling, he could be a great player. The floor could be, he's out of the league in a couple of years, or just a backup quarterback that does package plays. And then Olar is that other intrigue with a lot of high-end talent. So that's kind of the guys. I think after that, you're probably talking day 3 guys. You'll see Dylan Gabriel. You'll see Curtis Rourke. You'll see Will Howard, Kyle McCord. I think those are the guys you're probably talking about on day 3. At the running back position, I think the running back position, we know Gentry's going round 1. I think the next group of guys you'll see somewhere in the day 2 mix is Omarion Hampton, Caleb Johnson. I think those guys are locked for day 2. I think the Ohio State guys, Nicholas Singleton, Ollie Gordon. I think those are the guys you're probably talking about on that round 3, round 4 border. But then after that, guys in the top 10 mix, you're talking Woody Marks, Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal. We talked about Cam Skidabo, DJ Giddens. Those are those guys that could 1 or 2 sneak into the back end of round 3. Yeah, but most of those guys probably talking round 4, round 5 in what will be a really strong running back class. The running back rankings can go down to Raheem Sanders, who had a really bounce back year. Donovan Edwards, I know it wasn't the year people expected, but really ultra uber talented, highly regarded prospect. He's going to go somewhere in round 4, round 5. Damian Martinez just recently declared. He's going to be in the mix there in that round 4, round 5 mix. A lot of intriguing players. This running back class is going to be really strong, probably down to 20, to be honest with you. You'll see maybe 5 or 6 go in the top 100 is my guess. Maybe not 6, maybe 5, I think is my early guess right now. I think 3 are locked, but I think probably 2 more will probably go. So I think you'll probably see 5 running backs in the top 100, but you'll see a lot of people say, we're just going to wait until round 4, round 5. It's such a strong area of the draft and get guys there. If you take this to the pass catchers, I think 4 guys are locked for round 1. Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, Luther Burden, and Emeka Egbuka, I think, are round 1. I think Hunter, McMillan, top 10. I think Burden and Egbuka somewhere in that 15 to 25 range would be my early projection on those guys. After that, it'll be interesting to see if somebody materializes and gets into the mix. Is it a speedster like Isaiah Bond, who hasn't had nearly as big a year at Texas as we thought, as Matthew Golden has taken the reins as the lead guy, who I think will be a round 2 guys. I think round 2 is really the sweet spot, or not round 2, day 2 is really the sweet spot for this wide receiver group after the guys at the top. Because I think you're looking at a guy like Bond and Isle Manor and Trey Harris and Tej Johnson. And if you're looking for a slot-only guy, Xavier Restrepo out of Miami. You got Evan Stewart. You got Matthew Golden. You got Kyron Lacey. He's probably on that round 3, round 4 border. Jaden Higgins. Those are those guys that are going to make up, the top 12 to 15 wide receivers in this draft. I don't know if we're going to see one of those draft classes where we have 14 or 15 guys go in the top 100. I think this could be a draft class where maybe we see 10 wide receivers go in the top 100, because we're going to have potentially 6 tight ends and 5 or 6 running backs. So I think where it's going to pivot is we're going to see less wide receivers go in the top 100 this year than we've seen in a while. And I think, guys like, Restrepo could easily fall to day 3 and be a round 4 guy. Evan Stewart, somewhere in that round 3, round 4. Golden, Kyron Lacey. I think some of these guys will go day 2, but some of these guys could also, slide out and be taken on round 4 if the tight ends and the running backs take up more of the draft picks in your top 100. And then the tight end position, this is turning into a great tight end class. I have 6 guys that I think could have top 100 grades. I think Warren and Loveland both have round 1 grades. And then after that, whether it's Mason Taylor out of LSU, Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green, Elijah Arroyo out of Miami, Gunnar Helm out of Texas, 2 guys I talked about. I think all of those guys are worthy of being day 2 picks. Do we have 6 tight ends go in the top 100? That would be a lot, but I don't think it's crazy. And then you still got other intriguing names after that could materialize. But I think they're probably looking at more round 4, round 5 guys. I think the intrigue is, do those top 6 guys all go in the top 100, or do an Arroyo because of injury concerns or something like that, or Fannin because of Bowling Green, do they fall a little bit? But I think obviously we know Warren and Loveland at the top. I think Taylor's locked in for day 2. I think Gunnar Helm is probably a guy who could be on that round 3, round 4 border. And then you got Arroyo and Fannin. The level of competition questions, the injury questions are the 2 other factors that, do we get 6? Do we get 5? Do we get 4? If not, they'll be early round 4 as well on day 3. But 6 guys, I think, really worthy. I could see those 6 tight ends going in the top 100 before I see 11 or 12 wide receivers this year. So it's an intrigue there where we could have a little bit of a shift to the running backs and the tight ends taking some of those wide receiver spots that we've been accustomed to over the last couple of years. So there it is, guys. Quick rundown of what's kind of looking like in terms of top 10s at the positions of the 2025 NFL draft. Some thoughts on the college football playoff games that took place. Looking forward to the semifinals next week. Some discussions about the declarations. We talked about Jalen Milroe. We talked about Drew Allar we're waiting on. Felix, thanks for the comment again. About Carson Beck, yeah, I 100% agree. Felix said Beck should have went back to school. I'm very surprised he didn't go back to school. I think going back to school, putting together a more consistent year could have potentially elevated him back into the round 1 draft stock. I just think people are overvaluing what next year's class may be. I don't think we have any idea. Like, if I was going to guess right now, I don't think Arch is in the draft class. Nico, I think, is 50-50. So I just think the NIL and stuff has changed the landscape of college football a little bit, that guys could stick around a little bit longer if they want to. So I'm surprised a guy like Beck didn't go back to school and try to further improve his draft stock back to what it was before this year started, which was the consensus was he was going to be a first-round pick, potentially QB1, potentially top 10, et cetera, et cetera. I think he made the wrong decision. I do think somebody will still be intrigued with him somewhere on day 2. But again, when you take a guy on day 2, your leash to be a chance to develop into a starter is very, very small. And you have to perform very well, very quickly to, I think, get a long leash and get a real opportunity to be a starter at the next level. So there it is, guys. The NFL Draft Report Playoff Edition version 2. If you're enjoying this content, please get over to the website, SS Football, fastest and easiest way to get there. Check out our premium content tab. We're really going to start working on the premium stuff, really doing a lot of updates. The rankings notebook has mostly been updated, but I'm going to do major updates once I have all the official declarations, get them out of the Devi ranks, update. I already made a new tab called Draft Rankings instead of Draft Eligible Rankings. I won't be updating the Draft Eligible Rankings anymore. Now just the draft rankings, and continue to get names in there who declare. I have a couple names in there that big names like Drew Allar and Quinn Ewers, kind of waiting their decision, but mostly to be spots for guys who we know are going to be in there. And then obviously once it's finalized, I will continue to update that. So hopefully you guys have had a great holiday season. Happy New Year to all my listeners out there. I'm excited for the games next week, and we'll be back here breaking it all down. So until next time, when I take you from Saturday to Sunday, have a great one, guys.